That is our universal truth, right? Is that in some way we all have some type of pain that we're carrying with us every day, and it is kind of the compass to how we're living our life. And I was there too, right? I have trauma in my childhood, and for a long time, I allowed it to be the compass, right? I allowed it to kind of like be the thing that I just would always go back to, right? You find yourself kind of stuck in life, and you always kind of can trace it back to if only that hadn't happened. Like we start to really think that if that situation, that trauma, that divorce, that health concern, whatever that is, right? That has been the reason why we're not living the life that we want to live today. And sometimes it is because we still carry it, right? We carry it with us. So today I want to talk to you guys about the mindset shift, a principle that I teach to all my clients. I have 5 principles that I talk and I teach my clients when they're working with me about self-care. Okay, today I'm going to share with you guys one principle of that. So we need to start looking at why do we want to take care of ourselves, right? Because here's the thing, I talk a lot about self-care, and sometimes self-care can be really fun, right? It's about, getting a mask, or it's about, making sure that you're with friends or going for a walk outside, meditating. Like, it feels so good, right? But sometimes, why is it not leading to that transformation? Why is that not happening for you? Right? Because some of you might be engaging in all this self-care and you hear about it. And maybe actually, to be honest, some of you might be like rolling your eyes, right? Like, why is self-care so important, right? And the reason why I talk a lot about self-care is because that was my vehicle to my healing. It wasn't until I started to really dig deep into what was the meaning of my self-care, right? Because if we do it every now and then, we kind of sprinkle it, you're not going to see a transformation, guys. It's just not enough, especially because a lot of us have like a lot of pain. We have a lot of stuff in our closet that's tucked away. So us sprinkling it here or there, it's going to feel good in the moment, right? Like, we're going to go get that massage, we're going to take that vacation, we're going to, go to bed early, and it's going to feel good in the moment. But what I want to talk about today is how can we really transform, right? Because that's the question I was asking when I found myself stuck in a life that I just was like, why am I so unhappy? Why am I still carrying around that pain, right? Of I am not good enough, I'm damaged, right? And so I started to kind of look at what would make me feel good, right? And that is why I talk a lot about self-care, is because it is a vehicle. But here's the principle that you need to start thinking about, okay? Self-care is not about sprinkling, okay? It's not. Self-care is healing. So when you start to think about of taking care of yourself, prioritizing yourself, and that is healing. Doing that consistently and showing up for yourself, that is the work. That's the healing right there. So when I started to really shift the meaning of self-care, right? Because a lot of times we just think it's like a luxury. It's for people that have more time. It's for people that have more money. Like that's why we don't hire or invest in ourselves, right? Because we're like, not right now. Like that's just for the lucky people. That's for people that can, splurge. That's for people that have the luxury of having money and time. Here's the problem, guys. That thinking, that way of thinking of self-care That's why you're not having the transformation. It wasn't until I started to change the meaning behind what I did to prioritize myself. I started to realize that every time I learned to put myself first, I was healing. I was proving to myself that I am worthy. Every time that I really took care of my temple, right, my body, that's a way of nurturing myself, right? Of parenting my wounded child, of like, there's so much work in self-care. And that's why I teach all my clients that self-care is healing. This is not about, oh, this little habits that I have the luxury of doing. No, this habit of showing up for yourself, whether that's healing your body, right? Because I know that's something that we all struggle with, is like physical body, right? Like what's going on? Because that's a reflection of internal pain, right? When we're abusing our body, right? There's a part of us that doesn't see ourselves as worthy, whether that's over drinking, overeating, over exercising, over whatever, right? If we're doing it over, if we're doing it where it is harmful, I know for me, I've shared with you guys my story of I've had eating disorders, I've had binging, I've had restriction, and it really was until I started to heal myself through self-care of my trauma, right? Like my child pain, right? It wasn't until I changed the way I started to look at those actions, those habits, right? Self-care is healing. It is part of my story. And that is why I teach self-care. There's deeper work, guys. It is not just about the fluff that we see. It's not about making sure that you're getting a mask in every week. Now, am I opposed to getting a mask? No, do it. But it's the deeper work. When you start to set boundaries, when you start to take care of yourself, this throughout expression of self-care is amazing. Sometimes I still see it as a reward more than a necessary. Yes, yes. Remember, that's another one of my principles. There's 5 principles that I teach. And one of them is we think, right, that self-care is kind of just like an indulgence. But we need to change that self-care is a priority, right? So this just goes along with that principle. Self-care is healing, guys. This is why I come in here every day and I encourage you guys, how are you putting yourself first? If you are struggling, if you continually sabotage yourself, if you're not feeling good about yourself, like when you wake up, if you're trying to escape, right? If you wish like, oh my gosh, I can't wait till the end of the week. I just need to shut down and, binge on food and alcohol and just kind of pretend I'm not living this life. Okay? Yes, add it to your mantras. This is the problem, guys. It's because you're not making self-care a priority in your life. It is healing. It is how I have been able to really reach a place of healing in my own personal story where I could have never, ever thought that I could have been in such peace with it. Such peace, guys. And I want that for you. I want that peace for you because I remember when I was in turmoil. I remember when I would wake up and just be like, why me? Why me? Why is this still haunting me? I'm in my 20s, in my 30s. Why am I still having this anger, this frustration, this like, why me, right? And it wasn't until I really committed to my work, which is putting myself first and practicing self-care. And you guys have been following me. Some of you have been following me for a long time. And you know that there's different aspects of self-care, right? I have 4 pillars of self-care. So there's the physical, the spiritual, your environment, and your mental, right? There's different ways that we can self-care, but it's not about motivation, guys. I hear this all the time. And it's like, they tell me all the time, I have people that send me messages or, in person, they'll say like, oh my gosh, you're so motivated. Guys, I wish I could say that it's motivation. I wish I could tell you like, oh yeah, I'm just intrinsically motivated. But it's not. It's not about motivation, okay? It is really about changing the way you look at what you're doing. What's the meaning of those habits? What's the meaning of you healing your body? What's the meaning of you healing your budget? What's the meaning, right? Like taking care of those relationships, setting those boundaries. Like, what's the meaning behind that? And when I started to really shift my perception of what I was doing, they weren't just random sprinkles of taking care of myself. These were healing practices. These were healing practices. And the more that I got into it, right? The more that I got into this vehicle of self-care, it became the catalyst of me healing and being at peace. So I want to encourage you, okay, to take a look at what are the behaviors that you're doing that are no longer serving. I posted some questions earlier this week, and that was one of them. Like, how is this serving you? And then look at how can I start looking at self-care as healing? What habits in my life need to start happening? There's a lot of questions, guys. There's a lot of questions to ask. And that's one of the things that for me, I have a coach right now, and that's what I love, is having a coach, because then she can ask me the questions that I'm too afraid to ask myself. And you might be stuck in a place where you just don't want to face the music. You don't want to be honest with yourself, and you keep making excuses of why you're still stuck in anger and pain. It doesn't have to be that way, guys. It doesn't have to be that way. You can move from that. Now, sometimes we need a guide, right? I know I needed a guide, and a lot of my clients, once they start working with me, I'm working with this one young lady right now, and her progress, her transformation is like rapid. Her healing is just, she just needed a guide. We sometimes just need a guide to show us the way. So I have 2 slots open, okay, for July coaching. So if you're ready to get out of this like horrible place of just blaming your past and not getting any like traction on your healing, please send me a private message and we can talk details. I do give a free inquiry call. Like if you just want to kind of see, is this for me? We can set that up and we can just kind of explore, am I a good fit? I don't take everybody that inquires, because I might not be a fit for you, and that's okay. I can definitely refer you out if I'm not the fit for you that you're looking. But guys, it is time to heal those old wounds. Like, there's no reason for you to continue to be in pain and turmoil and continue to repeat the same behaviors that are sabotaging you, that you know deep down they're not serving you. So that's the principle I want to leave you here today is follow Lilia's advice, write that down as your mantra, right? Self-care is healing. And if you can really start to get on board with that new way of thinking, you're going to see huge progress in what you're doing, okay? And if you need help or guidance, feel free to send me a private DM. We'll get you started and we'll get you that transformation that you've been wanting. All right, guys. Well, any